I'm here in Cyprus with Mr. Softronis Sofroniou, who spent a lot of his time in England. He now lives in Cyprus, but he spent several years in England, and he's going to tell us his life story. It's your story now, Sofroniou.
I was born in 1929 in the village of Evrichou in Solea, in Cyprus. My childhood experiences were happy, but of course there was an economic crisis. It was after the New York crash, which affected Cyprus as well. There was little money and few opportunities. However, I think I was lucky in a way. I went to primary school in Evrichou, and Evrichou had the good fortune of having a secondary school, one of the few secondary schools in Cyprus at the time. It was a so-called Greek practical school, and really it was a useful school in that it taught commercial subjects that were in great demand. I went to that school for 2 years, but I had greater ambitions somehow, and by some kind of luck I went to Nicosia, to the Cypriot Gymnasium, where I studied for 4 years to get the diploma. Schools at that time were not really good. They only taught literature, history, religion, and very little science or economics in the case of the gymnasium. However, we learned good Greek, I think, and that was the main point of going to school at the time. On the basis of my certificate and an examination throughout Cyprus for teachers, I was selected. As a matter of fact, I was the first in achievement of that examination in Cyprus, and I went to Morphou, to the so-called Teachers Training College in Morphou, for 2 years to study to become a teacher. At that college, although it was under British kind of rule, I personally first experienced greater freedom and democracy in a way. We had a good education as to how to teach. We had also teaching practice twice a year, and I was appointed as a school teacher in the so-called model school of Agios Andreas. At the time they were trying to establish model schools, and Agios Andreas was one of them. I taught there for 2 years. Then I went to the technical school to teach English another 2 years, and I got a scholarship to study Greek at the University of London. I studied modern Greek history and literature, and for 2.5 years to get my Master of Arts. I had already obtained a Bachelor of Arts through correspondence with the University of London. It was a very good system where ambitious young people could get a degree even without attending lectures, by their own studying. Then I returned to Cyprus for a year. It was the time of the troubles and the EOKA fight in Cyprus. I had some misunderstanding with the Ministry of Education. They wanted to more or less not give me the proper position that I was meant for through a certain correspondence. And I left. I got a bit fed up with the system, really, and I left, went to England, where I was teaching in secondary schools for a while and got higher degrees. I managed to get a doctorate from the University College in language and history, and later on I was employed in the Greek service of the BBC. Whilst there, the job was quite easy, really, and it was opposite the London School of Economics, and a Greek friend of mine suggested to me, why don't you do something at the LSE? So I did so and got a Master of Science degree there. Really, it was about the philosophy of science and logic, and I had great teachers there, such as Karl Popper, who was world famous even then, Lakatos, and so on. And then through the London School of Economics, I was appointed as a lecturer at the then College of Technology, Enfield College of Technology. Enfield College of Technology was a growing and new college, and it morphed into first a polytechnic. Whilst I was there, we worked for the establishment of a polytechnic. I remember we had a quite well-known educationist by the name of Robinson, and just before I left in '81, it became a university. So I was a senior lecturer there for at first, and in 1981, in Thatcher's economic measures, they offered people early retirement with certain privileges. I wanted to return because my son was quite small. He was about 10 years old, and my two daughters were much older than him. I felt that for him it would be better to come to Cyprus, and so we came to Cyprus in '81, where I quickly joined one of the colleges, private colleges, that was very successful because it offered useful and subjects that led to easy employment. I stayed there for about 15 years, really, where I eventually became the president of this college. Originally I was more or less the president, but later on I became the president, and during my time the college was approved as a university. So I'm proud to say that I was part of the new University of Cyprus, and at the same time, or a bit later, I joined the Cyprus Research Center to do some research on Greek philosophy, and during that time I also became friendly with George Vassiliou, who appointed me as advisor at the presidency, and he really wanted me to take a leading part in the establishment of the University of Cyprus. And through the minister Andreas Philippou, we formed a small group of people for the establishment of the university, which took us 2 or 3 years. And that's another thing about my being proud of, in that I was instrumental in the establishment of 2 universities of Cyprus. I'm proud of it for another reason, because at the time, or a bit earlier, the leading educationists in Cyprus were against establishing any university on the thought or pretext that a university in Cyprus would drive Cypriot students away from Greece, as if they would lose their Greekness if they studied in a university in Cyprus. But we got over this narrow-mindedness in a way, and now these private universities are thriving. There are about 4 or 5 really, and they are not only doing good work, but they attract a lot of foreign students, and they are very strong supports for the economy of the island. As to my intellectual work, I did, my educational work didn't leave me time to do much research, except for the time when I was at the Research Institute. But when I retired, I sort of felt that I should do something on the intellectual level, and I started a series of publications on the culture of Western Europe. So I published already, I think, about 5 volumes on different aspects in historically the development of the Western mind. The titles of these books.
Can you show me the cover? You show me the cover.
Yes, this is one of the books, the latest one. Although historically, I'll tell you about 2 more. It's about the Enlightenment in Europe, the revolution really in thought that led to the modern Europe as far as politics, democracy, science is concerned. It started in about in the 17th and 18th centuries. So the other volumes really, I'll tell them to you in English, are as follows. Ancient Greek Love and Other Poetry. I took the poetry of Greece from Homer to the Alexandrian poets and so on, and I published extracts with comments in a historical sequence. Then came Voices from Greek Philosophy, which deals with Greek philosophers again from the ancient ones, such as Heraclitus and Parmenides and so on, to the time of Alexander. I left the Hellenistic period for a later volume. There, I believe I give a new interpretation of Plato, at least, and then I proceeded to Hellenistic and Roman philosophy. The Hellenistic and Roman philosophy is very important for Western Europe because it became the basis of the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. And in this connection, Cyprus was very important through Stoicism. Stoic philosophy wasn't just an ancient philosophy, it became the philosophy of Europe for centuries after the Renaissance. And it was very popular in Rome. The Roman philosopher and orator Cicero or the writer Seneca were steeped in Stoic philosophy. Then comes Mind and Manners of Classical Rome. I give the culture of Rome through many extracts and selections of works, including the thought and poetry and even the common life of the Romans. Humanism and the Renaissance comes later, which is not published yet. I'm working on it now. Humanism and the Renaissance is the period of the Italian writers like Petrarch, Dante, Boccaccio, and later on the northern writers such as Erasmus and the British Thomas More, the French Rodin and other writers, and legal experts that laid the foundations of modern Europe. And the last one is the one I showed you, selections from the Enlightenment. I also published great quotations in English, which was published by Amazon, and in fact this edition has been very successful in that it received 5 stars in their ranking. It received 5 stars, 100%. In other words, whoever ranked it gave it the maximum merit. Well,
you've been quite busy, I can see.
That's the...
Well, thank you, Dr. Softronis Sofroniou, for giving us the time to tell us your story. And I'm sure our viewers will enjoy listening to them. And I wish you continued success. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.